On this week's show, we talk all things tour, we have a chat with Travis Meyer, we talk about the local masters racing scene, and we'll wrap up with Levi's ride and the Under-19 National Championships. Welcome to the show, folks. Matt Pointer back with you with Gary Suckling. It is July, it is all things Tour de France, and mate, it's been a very, very fast and a little bit nasty start in the Tour de France.
Absolutely. Look, it was nasty on the road with the crowds. I thought that was reasonably nasty. But then that sprint with Cavendish, it's been all over Facebook, it's been all over the news, everywhere. All we hear about is Cavendish. I have an opinion on it, Matt, and I guess we might as well air that because everyone's opinion, it accounts for something. I honestly thought that he moved into Gerrans. I thought it was a pretty solid headbutt. I think he took the line completely off Gerrans, leaving him nowhere to go. The negative thing about what occurred there was he hadn't gone past him before he moved across with that head. That therefore caused him to be put into mischief himself. Consequently, he had the crash. Although Gerrans went with him, I think Cavendish caused it, and I think admitted as much.
Yeah, you look at the vision from the tape, it was clear that Gerrans was trying to follow the lead of Sagan as they went through the line. He did the old sprinters thing, didn't he? He just had the elbow in front of Cavendish. Cavendish came up inside him and stuck the head in. When he saw the gap was going to close, Cav just did the old sprinter thing. Got to be a good bike rider to do it though. He stuck the head into Gerrans. They got tangled up in the end, and of course Gerrans, typical Australian, got touched in the middle of a sprint and decided, I'm not going anywhere. We remember famously McEwen and O'Grady, two mates, doing it to each other years and years ago, but they both stayed upright and got relegated. Cavendish, bye-bye, no more tour for Mark Cavendish.
No more tour, yeah, and luckily Gerrans still in the tour. Could have very well been the end of his day. And we saw I'm just trying to think back when it occurred. There was one when one of the boys were rubbed out for less. Renshaw was the man, and possibly had a little. He never said anything about himself. No. Goss did have something to say. We'll probably let everyone be the judge of that in time. Very much so.
The tour, as we said, is well and truly underway. The crowds in Yorkshire have been absolutely astounding. Just like we saw at the London Olympics, people in Britain love seeing road cycling.
They most certainly do, and they really have turned up in numbers. How about all the tents out in the field? I thought that was fantastic.
And what about the parking? The parking, there doesn't seem to be any cars there. Then you look into the fields, perfectly lined up, not like the Tour de France when you see motorhome everywhere as you go along. The parking, the organisation of this Yorkshire tour, or the Yorkshire part of the tour, seems second to none.
I'll say, I think the only thing that's probably a little negative is the narrowness of the roads. You see the riders congest every so often and they have to hop off their bike. Probably the only glitch, but welcome to Tour de France racing in England in fine style this time.
Well, there have been a couple of changes just before the tour. The man of the Giro d'Italia, well the man as far as we are concerned, as far as Australia was concerned, was Michael Matthews. Very unfortunate training crash. We saw pictures of him on the internet, covered up like the mummy. Missed out on the start, and they replaced him with Christian Meyer, the Canadian. Not the greatest replacement, I don't think. If you're going to replace somebody, you'd think you'd replace it with something a little bit better than Christian Meyer. Sorry, Christian, but Michael Matthews was the guy who was going to win maybe a couple of stages.
Yeah, and look, probably Goss you would probably lean to because he is a sprinter. He's the nearest thing to Matthews, and on his day he was finding form. We've seen things from him very recently, so Goss a bit unfortunate, but don't worry, they're still there. And we saw some lovely work from Durbridge. I thought Durbridge's lead out to put Gerrans in a position to take on these sprinters. He could have run top three, I believe, Gerrans, without a doubt. And I kept seeing Durbridge, middle of the road, leading out, powering to the front, continuing to try. That's the style Durbridge applies, and he's big and strong. He's like a George Hincapie of the future.
Well, we can find somebody else to compare him to maybe. But we did get to see Durbridge sitting on the front of the bunch with Tony Martin, the world time trial champion. Just two of the best time trialists in the world having a chat on the front of the group. Then they show the back of the bunch and there'll be people going out the back, trying to get back up onto the hill. Luke Durbridge has gone to another level, sitting on the front of the bunch alongside Tony Martin, doing the job for his man, breathing through a straw, as we usually say.
And having a conversation while the others suffer. Well done, Luke Durbridge. We're going to follow you with interest for the rest of this tour.
There's plenty more to come in the Tour de France in July. You can watch it, of course, on SBS, the greatest coverage in the world for Australian Tour de France watchers. Otherwise, you can catch up with us next time. Well, it's that time of the year again when we have the Under-19 Road Championships of Australia, taking place in a very cold Canberra, Gary, but we had some good results from Western Australia.
Most definitely did. Jai Hindley, third position in the road race. What a fantastic effort for that young man. He's come on in leaps and bounds. And the other fantastic result, Michael Storer, He won the gold in the Oceania time trial, and then he's won the Criterium Championship. They reckon it was the hardest race of all time. A few unlucky riders there, not Michael Stora though. He should be selected for the World Championship on that performance. And this young guy is a very aggressive style bike rider. So well done to both our young West Australians. Let's wish them all the best and hope they make that team.
Well done indeed. And of course, as you say, Michael Stora, the Oceania Games time trial champion. Jai Hindley, every time he goes to a road championship, he seems to win a medal. One bloke I've had the chance to speak to just recently is WA's best ever junior at a World Championships, Travis Meyer. 5 times world champion. Well, he was good enough to sit down and have a coffee. So I'm here with Travis Meyer. Travis, what brings you back to the sunny skies of Perth, Western Australia?
Well, yeah, I've come back to Perth mainly to live now with my new wife, and just bought a new house. So yeah, racing with DRAPAC Professional Cycling this year, and we're racing predominantly in Asia, America and Australia. So yeah, that brings me back from the European circuit and trying something different, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to the year ahead.
Now you've been with Garmin, Orica Green Edge, you're now with the DRAPAC Professional Cycling team. Looked after by Hank Vogels, the WA champion. Does that make it easier for the transition out of Europe and into the Asian tour?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Hank's been around a long time, and he's been one of the best Australians in Europe in the Pro Tour in previous years. So he really knows the ropes, and yeah, he's a great guy to be under, and yeah, it does make the transition a bit easier. But of course, the level of racing's that step lower than what I've been used to in the past. But I think it's a good level for me to take my own opportunities and have a go.
Now, originally at the start of the year, we heard this horror story that you'd had this terrible accident training in Europe, but you weren't necessarily there for training.
No, well, I went there to mainly organise a few things from last year and pack up my apartment and things like that. And yeah, had a bit of an unfortunate incident and got hit by a car over there, so spent a little bit more time than I wanted to originally. But yeah, I fully recovered from that now and back on the bike, slowly getting back into it, and yeah, hopefully it won't happen again.
Now mate, you've raced all around the world. How important would it be to Travis Meyer to be able to race that calibre event, an international event, here in Western Australia?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I have done the biggest races in the world, and you know, if we can get a similar sort of thing happening in Perth, that'd be fantastic for all the cyclists here and Australia wide. So yeah, it would be great, and I think starting off with things like the Tour of Perth is a great start, and hopefully it'll just get bigger from there.
We see UCI categorised events over on the East Coast, South Australia and Victoria. Do you think Western Australia has the ability to run that type of event here?
Oh, definitely it does. I mean, we have the terrain, we have the people that can run it. I think, yeah, it's a perfect location. We've got good weather, and I think, you know, around those summer months it'd be perfect when there's a lot of World Tour teams in town because of the Tour Down Under and possibly the Sun Tour as well. So yeah, I think we've got the capabilities to put on an event just like that.
Now Trav, you're a 5-time junior world champion. We've seen a decline over the years of some of our top champions leave the sport. Kelsey Robson, Zach Shaw, Jack Edwards, just to name a few. Do you think there's a major reason why some of our kids leave the sport so quickly?
I wouldn't say there's too much pressure on the under-19s, not from what I recall anyway. I think being young, kids really put the pressure on themselves. So in Kelsey, Jack and Zach's case, I can't really speak for them, but from my own instance, I mean, yeah, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but from the program itself, I didn't feel like it was too much. But yeah, I mean, it's a big step, and it's a scary step to go from under-19s into the open categories. So whether that played an influence, I'm not sure, but for sure I wouldn't think that the program in under-19s is too much pressure.
Do you think the gap between under-19 competition and under-23 competition is larger now than what it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago when you were coming through?
Yeah, I think for the women it's slightly different. They've got a big jump to make straight from under-19s to the women's category. It's a pretty daunting task. I mean, it's like asking an under-19 male to go straight into the Giro or something like that. So for them, yeah, it would be nice maybe if they had a bit more of a stepping stone to move their way up. But yeah, I can feel for them it must be quite a big, scary leap.
And what's the plan for the rest of the year?
For the rest of the year, at this stage I just got to try and get fit, but I should be back racing by the end of August, I think, in China. I got 2 races there. And yeah, hopefully I can do well in the rest of the year, but I think the bigger objective is to get ready for next year.
No worries. Travis Meyer, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks.
Well, Matt, what an interview. I found that very interesting. Trav Meyer's take on the under-19 situation today. I think very interesting words from him because he's been there. He knows the story. And I think what I could glean from that was that once you become the open rider, the whole world changes. Under-19 is not quite under the pressure that we thought, perhaps.
There's a very interesting point that Travis Meyer made then about the huge difference in the level between the under-19 girls and the under-23 girls, because it just doesn't exist at the moment, under-23 girls racing. We have national championships for it, but it's not recognised yet on the UCI level. So as he said, it's a bit like, you know, coming out of the under-19s, going straight into the Giro Rosa for the women. You couldn't imagine someone like, say, a Caleb Ewan going straight into the Giro d'Italia.
That certainly would be a breaker, Matt, and I think the guys would find it impossible to do, and even the young ladies, obviously in the same situation. Let's hope things even out somewhat for the young ladies as they progress their way through, and the under-23s get the recognition that they deserve.
Well, the big thing is the change in Travis Meyer's career is to the benefit of us here in Western Australia, because he's moved home, he's going to be racing out of Australia now, and let's hope that having Travis Meyer around will do some great things for the sport. Now, many weeks ago, it seems like an eternity that we've been doing these shows, we spoke of the West Coast Master Cycling Council. One bloke put his hand up, didn't seem he was getting the recognition that he deserved. Well, hard conditions over the weekend, and this man has come up with the goods once again.
He certainly has, and Brett Stapleton is the man we're referring to. 2 wins this season, Matt, and we finally have mentioned Brett Stapleton. Well done to you, Brett.
Well done, Brett. Glove clap to Brett.
Mate.
Absolute legend effort.
And the West Coast Masters had a fantastic day out there. Results are very good in B grade. We saw a fine win. Paul Hearn, a former was a Menzies winner, in fact, and he's come up. He's back all the way from Geraldton, taking out a win. And in 3rd place, Mick Russell, possibly on his way back to B grade. And as he did very, very well, Steve Ward, a blast from the past, Matthew. We talk about many riders that are making comebacks. Steve Ward's back, and 2nd place for his first outing. Wonderful effort for the West Coast Masters out there at Wandy in atrocious conditions.
It is great to see Steve Ward back on the bike and out there. We see a fair bit of that out at the West Coast Masters Cycling Club. We're seeing Ray Laurie come back to the sport, the old 100-kilometre champion, and great to see so many of the old boys getting back on the bike and finding out it's still the place to be. Now, for the last few weeks, we've talked about our little mate, Levi Wibley. We've mentioned before the little bloke's doing a little bit tough. However, over the weekend, we had a ride to try and raise some money for him. The best part of 100 cyclists left the Dome Cafe in Armidale and travelled through the hills of Western Australia, up Brookton Highway through the lovely part of Araluen. The only thing about the ride, it was very, very wet, very, very windy, but it did not deter the spirits of everyone who took part. Now, last week on the show, we mentioned Jack Bauer, Sarah Kent and Greg Stoyles. Friends of the show. Jack Bauer, of course, has gone and got us a lovely jersey signed by the entire Garmin cycling team who's competing in this year's Tour de France at the moment. A good friend of mine and a good friend of the show's, Catherine Bates, former world points race champion, has gone and signed one of her old jerseys. It's never been used before. Champion of the world in 2007 in the points race, and she has put on it a beautiful sign. It's the people you meet that make the ride so good, and we loved, thank you Kate Bates for giving us that. Top Bloke of the Week award though, our favourite on the show now is Jack Bauer. Top Bloke of the Week award for this week goes to Jack Bauer. We'll have a new one each week. You can follow Jack in the Tour de France. He's the man behind getting us the jersey to be able to auction off. If you'd like to make a bid on any of these items, just go to our Facebook page, West Coast Cycling Show. Gary, it's been a great week in cycling. We'd like to thank Sayers Cafe for letting us do our interview with Travis Meyer this morning. Mate, I look forward to speaking to you next week.
Should be wonderful. And how much Tour de France riding have we got left in our legs? 2 sleepless nights, so it keeps on going. There's not going to be an end to this Tour de France. I hope I get through it.
Enjoy your week on the bike, folks.